They say the universe has a twisted sense of humor. Mine? It delivered the punchline on our wedding anniversary. 12 years. That's how long Meredith and I had been married. I remember, because I had the number stitched into the sleeve of the custom jacket I ordered for the occasion. Real subtle, real classy, like the guy in a cologne ad who doesn't smile, just broods near a fireplace. We booked a table at La Terrace, the kind of place where they fold your napkin for you if you so much as blink. Candlelight. Violinist. Wine I couldn't pronounce but pretended to love. All for one simple reason. I thought she deserved it. After all, 12 years of shared Netflix accounts, mismatched socks, and the occasional argument about loading the dishwasher wrong has to mean something, right? I even bought her a necklace. Simple. Elegant. A silver chain with a small sapphire pendant, the kind of thing you get for someone you know like the back of your hand. Meredith, for her part, looked stunning. Black dress. Red lipstick. Eyes like secrets. When she walked into the restaurant, heads turned. Mine included, like I hadn't already been married to her for over a decade. She sat down, gave me that half smile she used when she was either touched or quietly judging me. I never could tell. I have something for you too, she said. I chuckled. What? Another pair of novelty socks. You spoil me. She slid a small envelope across the table. White. Plain. No card, no ribbon, just her fingers resting on it for a moment longer than they needed to. You'll want to open that later, she said. When you're alone. Now, listen. I'm not a superstitious man, but when your wife hands you an envelope on your anniversary and tells you to wait to open it, that's not a gift. That's a grenade with a Hallmark label. But I smiled. I kissed her cheek. We ordered duck confit and reminisced about that road trip to New Orleans we never actually took but always said we would. It was a good night, by every surface metric, except for the envelope burning a hole in my inner jacket pocket. I waited until the next morning. The house was quiet. Meredith had already left for her weekend retreat with her yoga group, women who spent more time drinking white wine and gossiping than doing actual yoga poses. I made coffee, sat down at the kitchen table, and opened the envelope. Inside, a single sheet of paper. Typed, not handwritten. Just one sentence. This marriage is over. Don't contact me. The lawyer will. No, I'm sorry. No explanation. Just emotional arson in Times New Roman. I sat there, staring at it, not blinking. The coffee went cold in my hand. I laughed. Loud. Sharp. The kind of laugh you do when you've been hit by a train but you're still checking your pockets for your keys. Because that's when I realized something terrifying and strangely clarifying. This wasn't a surprise. It was a confirmation. She didn't write a goodbye. She wrote a resignation. I didn't call her. Didn't text, didn't email, didn't even so much as check her social media. If Meredith wanted distance, I was going to give her all the silence she could choke on. I'd read somewhere that the strongest move you can make after betrayal is restraint. So I sat in it, like a calm before a very intelligent, very calculated storm. But let me be clear, I wasn't moving on. I was investigating. See, I may not be a detective by trade, but I'm the kind of guy who remembers what socks people wear to funerals. The kind of guy who notices if you suddenly switch from vanilla creamer to oat milk and says nothing, but files it under suspicious behavior, caffeine addition. So I started backtracking. There were signs. Always are. You just don't see them until the wreckage is in your lap. 3 weeks earlier, she started leaving for work early. Same job, same office, but now she needed quiet time before her coworkers arrived. Meredith hadn't used the word quiet since 2018. She also started wearing perfume again. The same one she wore when we were dating. Not a dab either, full spritz. The kind of scent you wear to be remembered. And then there was her phone. She'd started turning it face down. Every time. At dinner. In bed. On the coffee table while we watched House Hunters and judged strangers' wallpaper choices. Funny how someone can be in your house and still feel like a ghost. She was polite, affectionate even, but not warm. Like someone playing a part she didn't rehearse enough. So I did what any calm, rational husband on the verge of emotional combustion would do. I checked our shared cloud account. Now, I'm not proud of it, but I am glad I did it. Because sometimes you've got to look the truth in the eye and nod like an old enemy. The photos weren't scandalous. Not yet. But they were there. Candid pictures. A coffee cup with a smiley face drawn on the lid. A wine glass set across from hers. A shadow in the reflection of a shop window, not me. Not anyone I recognized. Just enough detail to whisper, this isn't yours anymore. The kicker? A dinner reservation for two. 7 p.m. Bistro Calera. Same day she said she had a migraine and was staying late at the office. I could have thrown the tablet across the room, but I didn't. Instead, I powered it off, stood up, and went to the closet. I pulled down the box labeled Holiday Decor, slid it aside, and reached behind it to a folder marked Mortgage Stuff. That was the lie label. Inside were receipts, screenshots, call logs. I didn't know what I was looking for when I started collecting it all months ago, just that I'd felt it coming. Turned out I was right. A part of me hated that. The folder was my insurance policy. Because now it was time to get surgical. You ever notice how betrayal rarely kicks in all at once? It seeps, like a slow leak behind a wall, silent, steady, and destructive. It was a Thursday, the kind that feels like a waiting room for the weekend. I wasn't planning to go anywhere, but around 6 p.m., my phone buzzed with a text from my buddy Nate. Short and to the point. You at Bistro Calera tonight? I wasn't, but now I would be. I asked him why. He didn't reply. Just sent a photo. A blurry, over-the-shoulder snap from across the room. Meredith, hair curled. That red dress she swore was too much for our last anniversary. Sitting at a table for two, laughing. And across from her, him. Tan blazer. No tie. Smirk so confident it should have come with a warning label. He was leaning in like he had stock in her smile. I stared at that picture for 10 full seconds. Not sad. Not angry. Just awake. I drove there calmly. Parked 2 blocks away. Gave myself a minute. This wasn't going to be one of those public scenes with screaming and finger-pointing and flying cutlery. No. I wanted answers. Answers dressed in linen and served with a wine pairing. When I walked in, the host smiled and asked if I had a reservation. No, I said. I was already scanning the tables. But I think my wife's got one. Party of 2. The host blinked. Party of? There she is, I said. Meredith saw me before the host did. Her smile vanished. She froze mid-laugh, fork halfway to her mouth. The man across from her, let's call him Brandon because of course it was Brandon, turned slowly, like someone just called his name during roll call in hell. I walked up, nodded politely, and said, hope I'm not interrupting. Neither of them spoke. Brandon looked at Meredith, silently asking for his next move. She gave him nothing. So I pulled out the 3rd chair and sat. No drama. No raised voice. Just 3 people at a table that suddenly felt too small for all the lies it was holding. Meredith, I said. Nice dress. Still fits like a charm. She blinked. Logan, Brandon cut in. Look, man, maybe this isn't the time. I looked at him. Just looked. Like a dad who already knows who stole the cookies. I didn't ask you. Your dessert. She's the entree. He blinked. He stayed quiet. I turned back to her. How long? She hesitated, then said it like it was a number she'd been holding in her back pocket. 6 months. I nodded slowly. Vacation in Napa? Yes. Your aunt's funeral in Denver? Never happened. I laughed. Just once. Sharp and humorless. Then I leaned in. I just have one more question. Meredith swallowed. What? I looked Brandon dead in the eye. You know she still sleeps on my side of the bed, right? He shifted. Meredith's eyes went wide. Logan, please. I stood, buttoned my jacket. You can have her, I said, calm as a surgeon. But you'd better keep her entertained every second of every day. Because the minute she gets bored, I tapped the table. She'll be right back here. With someone else across from her. I turned to walk away, but not before handing Brandon a receipt. By the way, the necklace she wore tonight? I bought it. Anniversary gift. You're welcome. And I walked out. I didn't sleep that night. Not from grief. Not from heartbreak. From clarity. I sat at my desk, lights off, watching the cursor blink on a blank document. You ever stare at something long enough it starts to look like a metronome? That was me conducting the symphony of my own unraveling. But I wasn't composing a breakdown. I was drafting a recovery. Strategic. Surgical. Like I was reverse engineering my own marriage from the wreckage. Because here's the thing no one tells you. When you've been betrayed, you don't just lose the person. You lose context. The story you've been telling yourself? It turns out to be historical fiction. So you start rewriting the whole thing minute by minute, month by month. And that's what I did. I pulled out a yellow legal pad, drew a line down the center. One column, moments that felt off. The other, lies I believed. Let's just say I ran out of margin space by year 8. I wasn't crying. I wasn't pacing. I was cataloging. Like I was prepping for a deposition. And somewhere between listing our canceled road trips and her networking events that always coincided with Brandon's travel schedule, I remembered something Meredith once said at a friend's wedding. People don't fall out of love. They just stop telling the truth. That one hit different. She didn't fall out of love with me. She buried it. Under excuses, under late-night strategy meetings, under designer guilt with a return receipt. And the worst part? I let her. I gave her space. I gave her benefit of the doubt. I gave her everything except a reason to lie. So now, I was taking something back. The next morning, I called into work. Told them I needed a few days. Said I was dealing with a personal situation. That wasn't a lie. I was just dealing with it my way. Step 1. Lawyer. I met with a woman named Samira Khan. Word around town was she didn't just practice family law, she weaponized it. She listened. Took notes. Sipped her espresso like she'd heard this 1,000 times. Probably had. You've been married 12 years, she said. Do you know if she's been siphoning money out of shared accounts? She handles most of the bills, I admitted. Samira nodded. Then assume yes. We'll subpoena her financial records. Then she gave me a look. The kind that strips the sugar off the surface. Are you ready to go scorched earth? I thought about it. I thought about Brandon's smirk. Meredith's detached tone. The way they looked at me like I'd already been written out of my own story. Yeah, I said. Let's light it all up. Step 2, information. I wasn't just going to accuse. I was going to prove. So I went digital archaeologist on everything. Emails, shared calendars, the GPS app she forgot we installed to track gas mileage. You'd be amazed what people forget in the age of the cloud. She'd been meeting him at a boutique hotel 30 minutes out of town. Always under aliases. Always for exactly 4 hours. 4 hours. Just long enough to make it feel like a date, not a fling. She'd even blocked out time on her work calendar labeled vendor calls. I found receipts. I found texts. I found a photo of them kissing in a parking garage, captured on the reflection of a car window. If betrayal had a paper trail, Meredith left it like breadcrumbs. And I followed everyone. Step 3. Rehearsal. I'm not petty by nature, but I do appreciate timing. And Meredith had a charity gala coming up, hosted by her firm. Black tie. Fancy hors d'oeuvres. Press presence. Brandon would be there too, of course. Her +1. Nothing says subtle like parading your affair in front of donors. And that? That was my stage. I RSVP'd without telling her. Rented a tux. Showed up exactly 27 minutes after they arrived. Enough time for cameras to snap their entrance, but not enough for them to fully settle. I walked in solo. No theatrics. Just me, looking like the man she forgot I could be. Her boss spotted me first. Greeted me with that foolish enthusiasm you get when someone doesn't know your life just imploded. Logan, didn't know you were coming. I smiled. Meredith invited me. Must have slipped her mind. He laughed awkwardly. I didn't. Then I saw them. Meredith and Brandon. By the bar. Him in some overpriced suit. Her in a backless navy gown she once told me she'd only wear for someone special. I walked up. Calm. Hands in pockets. Evening, I said. Meredith froze like someone hit pause on her internal monologue. Brandon blinked. This isn't the place, man. Oh, I agree, I said. Which is why I'm not here to argue. I turned to Meredith. Check your email, I said. I sent you a copy of the separation agreement. She stared at me like I'd just spoken a foreign language. I continued. I already met with my lawyer. Don't worry, I'm not after your jewelry or your Tesla. Just my dignity. And you've already spent most of that. The people around us quieted. Eyes flicked. Ears leaned closer. And Brandon? I turned to him. He puffed his chest. I smiled. She cheated on me. She'll cheat on you. Statistically speaking, you're just the sequel. And let's be honest, sequels always disappoint. Then I walked out. No mic to drop, so I settled for the silence. Back home, I poured a glass of scotch, sat on the porch, listened to the crickets, and for the first time in months, I felt good. Because that was the prelude. The calm before the storm. Revenge wasn't coming. It had already started. A week after the gala, I did something most men wouldn't think to do after discovering their wife was doing the horizontal tango with someone named Brandon. I hosted a dinner party. Not a dramatic one. Not one where I lured Meredith and Brandon in like a villain in a Bond film. No, this was strictly invitation only. 3 of my closest friends, my older sister Marianne, God's greatest weapon disguised as a real estate agent, and Nate, yes, that Nate, the guy who sent the photo that launched 1,000 thoughts I never wanted. We sat in my backyard, string lights above us, the smell of grilled salmon and revenge lightly wafting through the air. I poured the wine myself. Calm. Cool. Every glass filled to the same line, like I was measuring it for court evidence. You guys think I'm crazy for being this collected? I asked after the plates were cleared. No, Marion said. I think you're dangerous. And I mean that in the most satisfying way possible. Nate leaned in. So what's the real play, man? I saw you roast her at the gala. It was legendary. But I know you. That wasn't the end. I smiled. Oh no, I said. That was just the thesis. Now I'm writing the chapters. Because here's the thing, public embarrassment? That's a spark. But sustained consequences? That's a fire. So I went to work. Step 1. The finances. Meredith didn't know I'd been quietly rerouting my paycheck for 2 months into a separate account. She still thought I was slow to update direct deposit. In reality, I was setting up a nest egg so untouched, even the IRS couldn't guilt-trip me over it. I also cashed out half the reward points from our shared credit card, used them to buy non-refundable flight vouchers in my name. Nothing malicious. Just a way to ensure she'd be racking up bills while I was sitting on the other side of the country with aisle seat comfort. Step 2. The reputation seed. Meredith worked in branding. Optics were her currency. So I wrote a tasteful, painfully polite social media post. After 12 years of marriage, Meredith and I are parting ways. I wish her clarity and peace in her next chapter. To those who know us personally, thank you for respecting our privacy. Betrayal is a teacher, and I'm listening. Loud and clear. 12 words in that post had people calling me for days. Even her mother called. Her mother. Logan, she said, I don't know what my daughter's done, but I know that tone. And it's colder than a Wisconsin winter. I didn't confirm. Didn't deny. Just let her sit in the silence and figure it out for herself. Let the rumors do the lifting. Then came step 3, the house. Meredith still hadn't formally responded to the separation agreement. Probably because Brandon was busy trying to convince her that living in his downtown condo with leather furniture and zero wall art was a step up. That's fine. Because I wasn't just waiting, I was upgrading. I got an appraisal done on the house. Quietly. With the same guy who helped me buy it. Turns out the market was ripe, and I had equity sitting in these walls like gold veins. So I made the call. Put the house up for private sale. Didn't tell her until the sign went in the yard. She came storming into the house that Friday, nostrils flaring like a racehorse about to launch off the track. You sold the house? She hissed. No, I said, casually flipping through a magazine. We're selling it. Joint asset, remember? This is my home. No, I corrected. This was our home. Until you turned it into a layover between hotel rooms. She had the nerve to look hurt. You're being cruel. I'm being efficient, I said. Cruel would be renting it out as an Airbnb and leaving framed photos of your betrayal above the fireplace. Then came the part she didn't expect. I stood, walked to the kitchen, handed her a manila folder. Inside? A full financial breakdown. I'm giving you 50-50, I said, even though you don't deserve it. She flipped through the pages. You've already done the math, she muttered. Months ago, I replied. She sat down like her legs stopped working. What happens if I don't sign this? She asked, voice low. I go to court, I said. We spend money we don't have. We bleed each other dry. And every email you ever sent to Brandon becomes public record. Her eyes flicked to mine. I smiled. Also, I subpoena your boss. Wonder how he'd enjoy being questioned about those conferences you expense. She didn't speak. Just stared. Your move, I said, sipping water. She stood, silent, folder in hand. As she reached the front door, she paused. You always used to be so gentle. I nodded. And you used to be loyal. She left. By Sunday, she'd signed. The house went into escrow. Brandon? He never moved in. Too much tension, apparently. I know this because I received a message from his ex the following week. You're not the first husband she did this to, it said. But you're the first one who made her pay for it. I was halfway through boxing up the home office when I heard the knock. Not the kind of knock you get from a neighbor borrowing sugar. This one was careful, deliberate. A knock that said, I've been rehearsing this moment since the driveway. I opened the door, and there she was. Jessica. Not Jessica, my ex Jessica, his ex Brandon's. She looked like she hadn't slept in a few nights. And to be honest, I appreciated that. It meant I wasn't the only one whose world had cracked open. Hi, she said, like we were old classmates running into each other at a gas station. I raised an eyebrow. This a coincidence or a confession? Can I come in? Normally, I'd say no. But something about the tightness in her jaw told me this wasn't a social call. I stepped aside. She didn't waste time. Walked straight to the kitchen like she'd been here before. Want anything? I asked. Just answers, she said. That made two of us. We sat across from each other. She slid a manila envelope across the table. Everything you suspected about Meredith and Brandon, she said. It's worse. I opened the envelope. Inside, screenshots, messages, a printed itinerary for a trip labeled as a consulting summit. It was a beach resort in Tulum. They'd booked it 6 months before I found out. Right around the time Meredith had convinced me we needed space to grow as individuals. You kept all this? I asked. Jessica shrugged. He used to use the same password for everything. Until he didn't. She looked at me, suddenly solemn. He left me the same way your wife left you. One day, I was his whole future. The next day, I was the draft he deleted. I nodded slowly. You wanted closure? She laughed. No. I wanted to see the face of the only man in this whole mess who didn't roll over and play doormat. That caught me off guard. Most guys, she went on, they either go full meltdown or pretend like nothing happened. You turned betrayal into a blueprint. Glad my pains become motivational literature, I said dryly. She smiled. You should write a book. I raised my coffee cup. Already got the chapters. After she left, I sat with those files. The resort photos. The messages. The receipts. And not because I needed more proof. Because I was done chasing the why. This wasn't about understanding them anymore. This was about understanding me. See, when someone cheats, they're not just choosing someone else. They're rejecting the version of you that trusted them. And the scariest part? You start questioning whether that version was ever worth trusting in the first place. But I wasn't that guy anymore. That guy was gone. He'd packed up right alongside the family photos and old anniversary cards. Now, I was something else entirely. The next day, I went to the storage unit I'd rented across town. Inside were 4 boxes, labeled, before her, with her, after her, never again. I didn't even have to open them. I just needed to see the labels to know I was doing the right thing. I stood there for a while, letting the quiet settle. Then I smiled, because I realized something no betrayal could ever steal from me. I survived her. I walked out of that unit not lighter, but sharper. Not healed, but reforged. A week later, I signed the papers on a new place. Not a big house. Not some penthouse with a view. Just a loft downtown. Brick walls. Hardwood floors. A single key on the ring. Quiet. It didn't scream look at me. It whispered start over. The first thing I moved in, that manila folder Jessica left. Not as a trophy, as a reminder that you don't always get to choose who wounds you, but you damn well get to choose who you become afterward. 3 days after I moved in, I got a call. Blocked number. I almost didn't answer. I did. Logan. Her voice. Meredith. I said nothing. Just let the silence marinate. I know you probably hate me. I finally spoke. I don't hate you. That would mean I still think about you. She flinched through the phone. I could feel it. I just wanted to say I'm sorry, she said. You're not, I replied. You're nostalgic. There's a difference. She was quiet for a beat. Then, you always had a way with words. Which is why you shouldn't have lied to someone who knows how to read people. She exhaled. Are we ever going to be okay? I paused. No, I said. But I'm going to be. And I hung up. Later that night, I sat on the balcony, watching the streetlights flicker like little silent witnesses to my rebirth. I poured a glass of scotch. Same brand. New bottle. And toasted the air. To the version of me you tried to break. Then I drank. Not to forget. To remember exactly who I was before her. And better yet, who I'd just become. The loft was quiet. Too quiet sometimes. After years of being half a step behind someone who was always running, silence felt unfamiliar, like a song missing its chorus. But in that stillness, I started to hear myself again. 3 weeks after moving in, I met her. Nora. She lived 2 floors down. We crossed paths in the laundry room of all places. She was arguing with a dryer that had apparently swallowed one of her socks. Either it's a portal, she muttered, or I'm losing my mind. You're not, I said, walking in. That dryer ate one of my towels last week. It's got a taste for heartbreak. She looked up, smiled, and said, well then, we're both missing something. Her laugh was easy, unrehearsed. We talked. Not about pain, not about exes, about books, about music, about how we both hated when people said, it is what it is. It wasn't love at first sight. It was quiet recognition. Two people who'd survived enough storms to stop chasing thunder. One night, Nora invited me for dinner. Nothing fancy. Pasta. A bottle of red wine. Midway through, she asked the question I'd been dodging. So, what happened? I didn't lie. I told her the basics. No gory details. Just the truth, distilled down to the part that mattered. She broke something in me, but not beyond repair. Nora didn't pity me. She nodded, poured another glass, and said, "You know what's worse than getting hurt? What? Letting it define you." That line stayed with me. After she went to bed, I stood on her balcony and thought about how far I'd come. From the restaurant. From the envelope. From the man I used to be. She was right. The betrayal wasn't the final chapter. It was just the midpoint twist. A month later, I received a letter. Handwritten. No return address. I recognized the handwriting immediately. Meredith. I didn't open it right away. Let it sit on the counter for 2 days. Finally, on a quiet Sunday, I sat down, poured a glass of water, not wine, not scotch, and opened it. It wasn't an apology. It was a manifesto. She talked about how she thought she wanted something else. How Brandon had been a mirror for her restlessness. How she wasn't sure if it was love, or if it was just a way to escape a version of herself she blamed on me. She wanted to meet. Talk. Reconnect. I folded the letter. Set it back in the envelope. Then I walked it straight to the garbage. Not out of spite, but because I didn't need her reasons anymore. I didn't need closure from the person who shattered the glass. I was the closure. People think revenge is a grand gesture. A confrontation. A reckoning. But that's not real revenge. Real revenge is living better. Not louder. Not flashier. Smarter. It's getting promoted because you've finally got the mental space to crush your work. It's finding peace in a new apartment where nothing reminds you of the past. It's meeting someone who doesn't need to be impressed, only understood. It's realizing you don't want her back. Not because she's a villain, but because you're not the same man she left behind. 6 months after Meredith's letter, I got a text from Nate. Guess who just dumped Brandon? I didn't respond. Didn't smile. Didn't care. Because at that point, my life was already too full of good things for her shadow to fit in it.